I can still picture the day Jack strolled into my life like it was just yesterday. I was in a tiny cafe, sipping on their cheapest coffee and trying to sort out my thoughts. Then he walked in, looking like he stepped out of a movie scene. No fancy lights or music, just the jingle of the doorbell and the smell of stale coffee mingled with his aftershave. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked, flashing me a charming smile and pointing to the empty chair across from me. "Go ahead," I said, trying to play it cool despite my surprise at his sudden appearance. We hit it off right away, like two peas in a pod. We had the same interests, from binge-watching cheesy TV shows to arguing over the best pizza topping, pineapple, no doubt. Soon, we were serious about each other, not just casually hanging out. It felt like we had known each other forever. And before we knew it, marriage was on the table. But then came the tough part. Let me tell you, his parents were a handful. Meeting them for the first time was like stepping into a lion's den with a juicy steak strapped to my back. They had this way of smiling while silently judging you, deciding if you were up to par or not. "You're the one Jack can't stop talking about, huh?" his mom said, her tone more frosty than friendly. "Yep, that's me," I replied, trying my best not to let her intimidating aura get under my skin. His parents wasted no time in expressing their desire for us to sign a prenup. I wasn't interested in their money, but their approach left a sour taste in my mouth. "I'll sign your prenup," I told them. "But here's the catch. If one of us cheats, the cheater owes $200,000. Jack looked stunned, like I'd slapped him with a wet fish. "Babe, I'd never cheat on you," he insisted, his expression dead serious. "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing before I caught him cheating," I shot back. It was either this deal or nothing. Jack eventually agreed, though his parents didn't seem too thrilled about it. We figured that settled the matter, but we were in for a surprise. One evening, we were cozied up on our old squeaky couch. We always talked about replacing it, but it held too many memories to let go. The TV droned on in the background, but we were too wrapped up in planning our dream trip to Switzerland. We knew it would stretch our budget thin, but we were determined to make it happen. Picture it, Jack. The food, the wine, the art. "We have to go," I exclaimed, excitement lighting up my eyes. Jack chuckled and pulled me closer. "Linda, you had me at food, but let's face it, our bank account is more suited for backyard camping than a fancy trip to Geneva." I nudged him teasingly. "Then we'll save up. We'll cut back on things we don't really need, like your video games." He feigned shock. "Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my beloved coffee maker, but spare the games." We shared a laugh. That was us in a nutshell, dreaming big while staying grounded in our simple life. And we were content. Our happiness didn't just lie in grand adventures, it was also in the everyday moments, like Jack's attempts at cooking breakfast on Saturdays. He wasn't a culinary master, but he had somehow perfected scrambled eggs and toast, which he proudly served with his less than perfect coffee. "I'm feeling scrambled eggs today. What do you think?" he'd ask, already making his way to the kitchen. "Only if you promise not to burn the toast this time," I'd tease back, adding, "and I'm taking charge of the coffee." One day, as we tackled the dishes together, a mundane chore that felt special because we did it side by side, Jack broached a topic we'd been avoiding. "Linda, we need to talk about, starting a family," he said, breaking the comfortable silence. I paused, holding a plate in my hands. "I know it's just scary, isn't it? What if it doesn't happen for us?" Jack turned to me, drying his hands on a towel. "Then we'll face it together. But we won't know until we try, right? How hard can it be?" He chuckled, a mix of nerves and affection in his tone. Famous last words, huh? But that's us. Whatever life threw at us, we tackled it together. Even when his mom started dropping hints about wanting grandchildren every chance she got, we handled it. "Linda, dear, when are you going to give me some grandbabies? You're not getting any younger, she'd say, her tone sugary but her message clear as day. I'd hold my tongue, flash a smile, and chirp, "We're on it, right, Jack?" And he'd chime in, "Mom, chill out, okay? These things don't happen overnight." But as time passed, the pressure mounted. It wasn't just from his mom, but from us too. We longed for a family, but it wasn't falling into place as easily as we'd hoped. Since Sophia found a new hobby in making my life tough, our home felt like a war zone. her sharp words the main ammo. It all boiled over during one Sunday lunch meant to be serene and easygoing. Right on cue, Sophia barged in uninvited just as we were about to dig in. The atmosphere turned tense the moment she stepped in, her eyes scanning the room like she was inspecting a battleground. "Well, isn't this a quaint little setup?" she sneered, eyeing the modest meal I'd whipped up. "Quite the effort, Linda. Looks like you've been slaving away in the kitchen all morning." Trying to keep the peace, I mustered a smile. "It's nothing fancy, Sophia. Just something simple and quick. Please, take a seat." As we settled at the table, she launched into her usual spiel. "You know, Linda," Sophia began, her tone dripping with condescension, "I was chatting with Mrs. Charlotte the other day, and she mentioned how her grandson just became a dad. It got me thinking, when are you and Jack going to give me some good news? Time's ticking, you know." My cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and frustration. I glanced at Jack, hoping for some backup, but he suddenly seemed very engrossed in his meal. "Mom, seriously?" Jack finally mumbled, but it lacked conviction, and we all knew it. Undeterred, Sophia pressed on. "I hate to be blunt, but you're not getting any younger. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Linda if she can't fulfill her basic duties as a wife? Hiring help for cleaning and cooking would be much more efficient, don't you think?" That was the last straw. "Sophia, I'm doing my best here," I blurted out. "It's not like I don't want kids. And as for the house and cooking, I didn't realize marriage came with a job description." Sophia scoffed. "Marriage isn't a free ride, Linda. You have responsibilities, and frankly, you're not meeting them." The air grew heavy with tension, and tears threatened to spill from my eyes. But what hurt the most wasn't Sophia's harsh words. It was Jack's silence. When he finally spoke, it wasn't in my defense. "Mom's right, maybe we should consider getting some extra help around here. It would take some weight off your shoulders too," he suggested. His words felt like a stab in the back. It was clear I was alone in this. In the days that followed, Sophia's visits became more frequent and her criticisms sharper. She'd scrutinize every corner of the house, pointing out any flaw. "You call this clean?" she'd sneer. "Looks like a pigsty to me." Then came the jabs about my appearance. "Is that what you're wearing? A wife should dress to please her husband. No wonder Jack seems exhausted. He comes home to this." I tried to stand up for myself. "Sophia, I dress for myself, not Jack. And he's tired because he works hard, not because of my outfit." But it was pointless. Sophia had made up her mind about me, and nothing I said seemed to make a difference. Jack's lack of support hit me the hardest. Every night after his mom's departure, we'd end up arguing. "Why won't you defend me, Jack? She's bulldozing over us, and you're just standing by." "Linda, she's set in her ways. What do you expect me to do? Kick my own mom out?" "No, but I expect you to be my partner, to stand with me, not her." It became evident that this went beyond Sophia's disapproval. It was about us, our marriage, and whether we could withstand the onslaught of Sophia's criticisms. As weeks passed, it dawned on me that this wasn't just a passing phase, it was a full-blown assault. If we didn't take action soon, there might not be anything left to salvage. Things between Jack and me had turned frosty ever since Sophia ramped up her criticisms. But it wasn't just our home life feeling the strain. Jack himself had started behaving oddly, and it wasn't solely because of work stress. There was something else, something unsettling. It all began with his phone. Jack used to be open about it, we had no secrets. But then he began leaving the room whenever he received a call. And it was always from the same person, Paul Work. One evening, I tried to sound nonchalant and asked, "Who's Paul Work?" Jack visibly tensed up, a clear sign of nervousness. "Oh, just a new guy at the office. Asks a lot of questions," he replied. But there were more changes. Jack, who never cared much about fashion, suddenly started paying attention to his appearance. The graphic tees and worn-out jeans disappeared, replaced by crisp shirts, slacks, and even cologne. "Since when did you start smelling like a department store?" I teased one morning, watching him style his hair differently. He just smirked. "Can't a guy mix things up every once in a while? No harm in that, right?" Then there were the late nights at work, becoming more frequent. "Another long one, babe," he texted. "Sorry, this project is a killer. I'll be home soon, I promise," he reassured, but it would be well past midnight before I heard his keys jingle in the door. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It lingered like a shadow. That's when I made the decision to hire a private investigator. It felt like a scene from a cheesy TV show, but I needed to know for certain. The evidence arrived in a plain brown envelope. Heartbreaking yet undeniable. Photos of Jack with another woman, their intimacy unmistakable, captured in moments that shattered our years together. But it was the recording that cut the deepest. Their conversations filled with affection and plans made it painfully clear. He was in love with her, or at least with someone else. I sat there, staring at the damning evidence before me, a chilling reality sinking in. This could be the key I needed if our marriage spiraled into a messy divorce. The photos captured stolen moments from our life together, while the recorded words betrayed every "I love you" he ever whispered in my ear. But I kept it all to myself, a heavy burden I chose to carry alone. I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. I needed time to strategize, to navigate the collapse of our marriage while preserving my dignity. The days that followed passed in a blur. Jack maintained his facade, and I played the part of the dutiful wife, smiling outwardly while crumbling inside. Our conversations became a delicate dance around the truth, each word carefully chosen, every laugh forced. "Are you okay?" Jack would inquire, genuine concern lacing his voice. "Yeah, just tired, you know. Work's been hectic," I'd respond, the lie bitter on my tongue. It seemed like just another ordinary day until I accidentally overheard a conversation that would change everything. As I passed by Jack's office, the door slightly ajar, their voices drifted out. It was Jack and his mother, Sophia, and their conversation wasn't casual. Their tones were serious, filled with purpose. "I can't keep this up, Mom. It's not just about having kids anymore. I don't feel the same way about Linda. It's like we're living together as strangers, not as a married couple," Jack admitted, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Sophia's reply was cutting. "Well, can you blame yourself? She hasn't given you a child. And what else has she really brought to this marriage? But let's not be hasty. My 65th birthday is approaching, and we wouldn't want to miss out on a generous gift from her, would we?" Her cynicism felt like a stab in the heart. They were using me, planning to keep me around just long enough to benefit from a lavish birthday present before discarding me. "Exactly, dear. Just a bit longer," Sophia affirmed, her words dripping with malice. I stood there, stunned and furious. They were plotting to push me out of the family as effortlessly as crossing off an item on a shopping list. The pain ran deep, but it fueled a burning desire for vengeance within me. They thought they could manipulate me and discard me at their convenience. I was determined to prove that I wasn't just a pawn in their twisted game. A few days later, we gathered for a family dinner that felt more like a scripted performance than a meal. Sophia brought up her impending birthday with a smile that made my stomach churn. Leaning in, she asked, "So, Linda dear, what do you have planned for my birthday? Something special, I hope." I met her gaze calmly. "Actually, Sophia, I've been thinking of arranging a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant, an unforgettable evening." Her eyes gleamed with anticipation, and she exchanged a satisfied glance with Jack. They believed they had me cornered, but they didn't realize I was already 2 steps ahead. "Oh, Linda, that sounds lovely. Just close family, you know, keep it intimate," Sophia cooed, her voice oozing with insincerity. "Absolutely, Sophia. We'll make it a memorable occasion," I replied, the words leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. The weeks leading up to Sophia's 65th birthday felt like a slow march towards a reckoning. Every smirk from her and every indifferent nod from Jack fueled my resolve. My plan was straightforward yet daring. Orchestrate a lavish dinner as a supposed gesture of affection, then unveil a monumental surprise. As with all well-laid plans, the devil was in the details. The night before the party, our home crackled with tension. Jack, oblivious to the storm brewing, lounged casually on the couch, absorbed in his phone. "Everything ready for tomorrow?" he inquired, still glued to the screen. "You could say that," I replied, my voice masking the turmoil within. The day arrived, and as guests streamed into the opulent dining room we had reserved for Sophia's celebration, anticipation hung heavy in the air. My pulse quickened, not from nerves, but from the excitement of what was to come. Sophia, relishing the spotlight, luxuriated in the grandeur of her surroundings. "Oh, Linda, you've truly outdone yourself. This place is divine," she proclaimed loudly enough for neighboring tables to hear. As we settled in, the evening unfolded with the peculiar cheer typical of family gatherings. Laughter rang out, stories were shared. Then, as the dessert plates were whisked away, the waiter approached with the climax of the evening. The bill. He leaned in discreetly and murmured the staggering dinner costs. $66,000. I handed over my credit card, my action going unnoticed by most. Then, with a strained smirk, Jack decided to drop his bombshell. Linda, it's time for the truth. I'm done with this, with us. I want a divorce. His words hung heavily in the air, suffocating the room. Before I could fully process his announcement, Sophia, sharp and unyielding, interjected. Well then, now that's out in the open, it's best you leave, Linda. Tonight is about family, and well, you're no longer part of ours. The room fell into a hushed silence, every gaze fixed on me, awaiting my response. But I refused to crumble. With a composure I didn't truly feel, I rose from my seat, nodded, and departed without a word. The chill of the night air slapped against my skin as I made my way home, the weight of finality crashing over me in waves. By the time I reached Arno's apartment, I had a plan. I gathered my essentials, my numbness morphing into steely determination. This was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. As I sealed my last suitcase, my phone buzzed incessantly. Initially, I ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me, and Sophia's voice erupted from the other end. Linda, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this right away, Sophia's voice demanded. The irony was bittersweet. In my preparations, I had blocked access to the shared account, anticipating it would be Jack's first move. Oh, Sophia, what a shame. But since I'm no longer considered part of the family, as you've made abundantly clear, I'm afraid you'll have to handle this matter on your own. Her indignation crackled through the phone, but it was a symphony to my ears. The ensuing chaos was a fitting conclusion to the charade my marriage had become. I heard tales of the restaurant staff demanding payment, Sophia's escalating fits, and eventually the police being called to defuse the situation she had incited. In the end, it was Jack and his kin who scrambled to settle the bill. A poetic retribution for the betrayal and indignity they had subjected me to. The morning after the dinner felt like emerging from a tempest. Armed with my plan, my determination, and a stack of divorce papers in hand, I returned to what once was our shared abode for the final time. The atmosphere was tense, palpable, as if it could be sliced with a blade. Jack and Sophia stood there, seemingly embroiled in a heated exchange. Their animosity toward me seemed to merge into a unified front of fury upon my arrival. You've got some nerve showing your face here after last night, Jack spat, his features twisted in a mixture of anger and disbelief. Quick to echo his sentiment, Sophia hurled her own barbs. Ingrate, you've brought shame upon us in front of the entire city. Do you comprehend the humiliation of having the police summoned on account of your actions? People were laughing, filming. I met their fury with a composure I hardly felt. Shame? Is that your primary concern right now? I retorted, tossing the divorce papers onto the table, placing the incriminating photos of Jack's infidelity atop them. Perhaps you should direct your attention to this instead. Jack's complexion drained of color as he picked up the damning photographs, with his mother looming over his shoulder. Their rage dissolved into shock, then morphed into panic as they comprehended the gravity of the situation. And let's not overlook the prenup, shall we? I pressed on, my voice unwavering. You stray, you pay, precisely $200,000. Sophia's features contorted into a snarl. You wouldn't dare. You can't do this to us. Oh, but I can, and I will, I retorted, my voice devoid of warmth, resolute in my decision. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Jack altered his approach. Please, let's discuss this. We can find a solution. I couldn't suppress a bitter, mirthless laugh. Find a solution? You think a few words can undo everything. No, Jack, it's over. Sophia, ever the master manipulator, attempted to soften her stance, her tone dripping with false concern. Linda, darling, think about what you're doing. This will destroy us. That ship has sailed, Sophia. You should have considered that before. Their pleas shifted to desperate entreaties, their words a frantic attempt to salvage whatever remained. But my mind was resolute. I was done playing the victim, done with their deceit and manipulation. In the end, Jack had no recourse but to borrow money from his parents to settle with me. As I departed from that house for the final time, check in hand, I felt a burden lift from my shoulders. After all that transpired, I was finally liberated. I used the money from Jack to secure a down payment on a modest yet snug abode of my own. It's remarkable how much tranquility you can find in a residence that's solely yours, where each nook feels like a sanctuary away from the tumult of the past. Life is calmer now, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I have a job that keeps me occupied, amiable neighbors who offer nods and smiles, and a petite garden that's entirely mine to tend to. Occasionally, I catch wind of gossip concerning Jack and Sophia. Just the other day, while grabbing coffee from the local spot frequented by the community, I bumped into an acquaintance from the old neighborhood. After some polite chit-chat, they leaned in, lowering their voice, and whispered, "Hey, have you heard the latest scoop about your ex and his mom?" Their eyes gleamed with intrigue. I arched an eyebrow, intrigued yet detached. "Can't say that I have." "Do share." They seemed to relish divulging the news. Apparently, Sophia isn't too thrilled with Jack's new girlfriend. Rumor has it they're quarreling like there's no tomorrow. Puts your situation in a whole new light. We moved on from the topic, but as I strolled away with my coffee, I felt a profound sense of relief. There was a time when such news would have unsettled me, but now it's simply another chapter in someone else's tale. These days, my greatest worries revolve around whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels snatch them, or if I'll ever master yoga without resembling a newborn deer on ice. Life is simpler, quieter, and considerably sweeter on this side of the chaos. Meet Elise, a 33-year-old corporate professional who's been happily married to Luke for 2 years. Luke, 3 years her senior, works at a sister company to hers. Since the beginning, they've been residing with his parents in a two-family home arrangement. Luke, the younger of 2 brothers, has an elder sibling named Cody, who's 6 years his senior. Before Elise and Luke tied the knot, it seemed like Cody and his parents were the primary occupants of the household. However, Cody's wife, Krist, known for her talkative nature and competitive spirit, often found herself at odds with her equally strong-willed mother-in-law. Eventually, Cody and his father had enough of the family disputes and decided to move out. Despite living alone since he started working, Luke and Elise never seriously considered the idea of residing separately from his parents. So, when Luke's mom suddenly declared that they would be moving in after marriage, it caught both Elise and Luke off guard. Elise had assumed they would continue living in her current apartment until they decided to start a family, as it was convenient for her commute. However, it seemed that living together was inevitable in their family's eyes. Although the idea initially unsettled them, they realized that the commute wouldn't differ much whether they stayed at Luke's apartment or his parents' house. Besides, the ancestral home, crafted by Luke's grandfather, boasted both a main house and a guest house, promising ample privacy. Reluctantly, they agreed to move in. However, Elise soon found herself regretting the decision. Luke's mother, in her mid-60s, began complaining about back pain and dizziness, leaving all household chores from cleaning to laundry and shopping squarely on Elise's shoulders. As a full-time worker, even sharing chores with Luke barely managed to keep our lives and his parents' lives in order. Then, an unexpected financial burden hit us. Firstly, the guest house needed serious renovations. Initially appearing livable from the outside, stepping in revealed a dire need for more than just patch jobs. The bathroom, kitchen, roof, floors, everything showed significant wear and tear. Yet it was our space, and naturally, we committed to paying for the renovations. What caught us off guard was when my mother-in-law demanded the same renovations for the main house upon seeing the newly refurbished guest house. It seemed inconceivable to fix up our space and leave them in a rundown place. However, we couldn't afford to do everything all at once. "Why is Elise working then? To support us, her in-laws?" my mother-in-law questioned. "Exactly, Luke, we blessed you with marriage. You should serve us in return." So not only did they want the house renovated, but they also desired new high-end furniture and appliances, claiming the newly renovated rooms deserved the best. Additionally, they made us pay for every little thing, from groceries to household items. Thanks to this situation, Luke and I struggled to save even a tiny bit of money every month. Just as we approached the 3rd year, my mother-in-law and the Cody couple suddenly dropped the bomb. "We're moving in, you have to move out." Christy explained that Cody got laid off, although he was actually spared but chose to leave to save a collie with kids. Despite having 1-year-old twins himself, he was deemed more responsible due to his prestigious university background. Facing this ultimatum, Luke and I sat down with my in-laws, pleading our case for hours until we finally conceded. Fine, we'll move out this week. It was clear that we had no other choice. We've learned plenty about family from you, mother-in-law and father-in-law. It's time to put that wisdom into practice, right, Luke? I teased, glancing at my husband. Ha, finally getting it, are you? Luke chuckled. Yeah, just like Elise said, we're happy to do it. Great, case closed, he affirmed. With that, Luke and I turned our backs on our chuckling in-laws and headed for the guest house. 2 weeks later, we had movers arranged and relocated with no time to spare. Opting for the full packing service due to time constraints, we timed our move during my in-laws' regular lunch at karaoke with friends to avoid any complaints about the items we were taking. We wrapped up all the formalities in 3 days, utilizing our paid leaves and starting our new life. However, one day, I received a call from the front desk at work, informing me that someone claiming to be family was there to see me. I had a feeling she'd show up soon, but I didn't expect her to barge in on me instead of Luke. Quickly texting Luke about the situation, I braced myself for the inconvenience. Luke's response came swiftly, suggesting that we ask Maya to step out for a meeting to avoid causing trouble at the office. Passing the message to the front desk, we managed to make our in-laws leave as agreed. That night, as Luke and I pulled into the parking lot of our in-laws' compound, they, along with Cody and his spouse, rushed out of the main house and guest house to greet us. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that both my in-laws had a baby strapped to their backs, probably Cody's twins. As I locked the car, Cody's voice boomed angrily. Hey, how dare you show up here in my parents' cars? Luke remained composed, retorting, your parents' cars? Which ones are those? This seemed to infuriate Cody even more. The cars you both drove up in, obviously, he exclaimed. Well, Cody, both these cars were purchased by us. Our names are even on the registration certificates. Would you like to see? Luke interjected, stepping in. I've been annoyed by how our parents drive these cars as if they own them. We let it slide because we live together, but now there's no need to lend them out, right? I added, feeling a surge of irritation. Don't forget Dad-in-law has that old minivan he used for work, Chrissy chimed in, glaring at us. Who cares about that old car? Spat Cody. But it's perfect for twins, isn't it? You can fit 2 car seats, I retorted, attempting to reason. Our back and forth made our in-laws uncomfortable. After seeing Cody receive a talking to about the cars, they jumped in. What about the furniture and the appliances? Taking them while we're away. That's stealing, not just from the main house, but also from the guest house, Cody argued. Yes, Cody and I can't live without those, Chrissy added. Why would we have to leave them? Look, I get what you're saying. We're using the guest house anyway. But there's no reason to dip into the main house too, Luke reasoned. Why isn't that stuff we all pitched in for? I asked, trying to understand their logic. Such arrogance. Even so, once you gave it, it's ours, father-in-law fired back. Whoa, hold on. We never gave you anything. We just lent it. There's no memory of us ever saying we're giving it to you, and there's no transfer of ownership on paper, Luke countered, shocking both our in-laws. We were living together, so we lent stuff as a courtesy. Now that we're living separately, why would we keep lending you things? We just took back what's ours. Is that a problem? Luke continued, exchanging smiles with me. Well, we have washing machines and fridges too. You don't need 2 of each, do you? They argued. Exactly, so why not lend it to us again? Wherever you've moved, stuffing everything into a small space will just make it even more cramped, Luke concluded. We exchanged grins, acknowledging our cramped living situation. True, we're pretty packed right now, I admitted. Absolutely, it's a tight fit, Luke agreed. Chrissy began, in that case. But we cut her off. Remember, it's a storage room, so it's supposed to be cramped, I chuckled. Exactly. Until the official contract is done, this is how it has to be, Luke concluded. This left Cody and our in-laws utterly confused. Then Luke dropped a bombshell. Oh, by the way, both of us are moving to Boston next month. Luke smoothly explained that we had both originally been offered positions at the corporate headquarters but had turned them down because we were living with my in-laws. However, now that the obstacle of living with them was removed, we had both accepted the transfers and happily received internal notifications for positions at the corporate headquarters. Even better, if all went well, we could be working there till retirement. As luck would have it, Luke's colleague, who was going overseas for an extended period, wanted to sell his high-rise condo. Everything fell into place quickly. You guys are going to live in a high-rise condo in Boston? Man, life sure does throw some curveballs, doesn't it? Cody remarked. Totally. If Cody and the gang hadn't told us to move out so they could live here, we wouldn't have stumbled upon this jackpot, I replied. But how could we even afford a high-rise condo? That seems unreal, Christy questioned. That's thanks to Alisa's dad. He provided the down payment, Luke revealed. Alisa's dad just gave you the down payment? Cody asked, surprised. Yes, my sister is inheriting the family property, so this is sort of a trade-off. Plus, a previous owner asked if we could hold on to his modern altar until, upon my return to the country, I proposed lowering the asking price, and he agreed, securing a significant discount. However, hearing about the extent of the discount, Christy, who was standing nearby, burst into tears, exclaiming, "That's so unfair. I'd rather have a high-rise condo in Boston than live in Atlanta." Suddenly, the in-laws, who had been quiet all this time, switched gears and started fawning. Well, it looks like Luke really has it together, doesn't he? Like mother, like son. Luke is following in my footsteps, they chimed in. Ignoring their comments, Luke turned to me and said, "Living in a high-rise in Boston, everyone's going to be so jealous. When are you moving? We must visit. If we're going to Boston, you should come too," I suggested. The idea seemed to intrigue them. However, the mood shifted when Cody and Christy stopped their arguing and snapped at the in-laws. "What are you talking about? Cody's being downsized, so you're going to have to support us. Plus, until I find another job, Christy will have to go back to work early from her parental leave. You'll have to take care of her household chores and the twins," they confronted. As tension mounted, Cody and Christy marched up to the in-laws who were carrying the twins. The babies, sensing the tension, started crying, waking up the entire neighborhood. Noticing the neighbors gathering at a distance from the garage, the in-laws turned beet red. Luke finally intervened, addressing Cody and the others. "Stop just standing there. Exactly, these guys are trying to take advantage of us, your parents." Luke's laughter echoed as he continued, "So, this is like a battle of wits between a raccoon and a fox, huh?" Turning to the bewildered faces around him, he grinned and explained, "If both couples, us and you, don't work, our family finances will collapse next month." Fuming, Christy asked what this meant. I chimed in, "Christy, you thought if Cody lost his job and you moved into the in-laws' rental home, you could just push the utility bills and groceries onto them, right? Well, our income was running this house, and you can't count on it anymore." "I've never heard about this, exactly what we're telling you now," I admitted, puzzled. "Oh, and you'll also need to help with the mortgage payments for the house renovation. It's in father-in-law's name," Luke added. "Why is it in his name?" I questioned, catching the in-laws off guard. Luke took over, explaining, "I wanted the loan in my name since I was paying for it, but Dad insisted it would be shameful. So we used this property as collateral. Until now, we've been transferring money into Dad's account to cover the loan. Cody, you'll need to chip in starting next month." Of course, the in-laws and Cody were against it, but Luke firmly declined to continue payments. "We're going to give up the inheritance. So, Cody, as the one who will inherit, you better take good care of your parents and the family home," I firmly told him. "But children are still obligated to take care of their parents, right?" my mother-in-law insisted. Luke brushed it off, saying, "Well, considering we've been covering your living expenses and loan payments for the past 2 years, I'd say that pretty much balances out any future caregiving costs I'd have as a son, don't you think?" "Let's go home, love," Luke said, looking at me. "Goodbye, everyone. I doubt we'll meet again." "Take care," I said, bidding farewell. The next day, Luke and I sold off the furniture and appliances we had moved from the main house, along with 2 cars we wouldn't need anymore. When Chrissy texted us asking for them, I simply replied, "Why?" and blocked her. After that, the special leave granted for our job transfer wasn't enough, so we had to use up our remaining paid vacations to finally finish moving into the apartment. Buying the high-rise condo would take more time, so for the first year, we decided to rent, thanks to the generosity of my boss who owns the place. As the weekend arrived, bringing a bit of calm after the storm of recent days, we gazed at the city lights, and Luke broke the silence. I know I've been a hassle this time, but thanks for sticking with me, I said, feeling grateful for Luke's patience. What's with the formal tone all of a sudden? Luke joked, but then his expression turned serious. When we first got married and the idea of living together came up, I should have thought things through. But back then, I was just happy you chose me over Cody, who I'd been compared to since we were kids. He continued, reflecting on how we had mindlessly followed his parents' wishes until they told us to move out to make room for Cody and his family due to the company restructuring. It struck me, how could they say that after being such a burden on us financially and otherwise? Luke wondered aloud. And then I thought about how much your parents must worry about you given your situation. He explained that he sent an apology email to my parents, and their response was heartening. If we promise to make our daughter happy in the future, the past can be forgiven. Encouraged by this, when they discussed the down payment, they lent it to us without a hitch. Luke made a promise to do everything in his power to protect our life together, just the two of us and our future children, if we were blessed to have them. However, on the other hand, it seemed my in-laws were struggling. Despite pulling from their retirement income, they could barely afford the loan for the home renovation. With Cody's attempts to find new employment proving futile, they were forced to make do with Christy's salary now that she had returned to work. Arguments were frequent, often loud enough to hear outside the house. A former colleague even reached out to me, mentioning gossip about them skipping town, as they had cut off all contact with Luke and me. They even resorted to reaching out to my parents, but my dad immediately changed his phone number, seeing it as a small but significant step, given how they had belittled my family and neglected pre-marriage courtesies. Now, they had almost no way to get in touch with us. What goes around comes around, I mused. My name is Luda Okojima. I'm 29 and work for a big international company. I grew up in the United States until I was 18. My dad is Japanese and my mom is white. He's the boss at the company where I work. I learned 5 languages when I was very young, thanks to tutoring. Now I'm in charge of the company's operations in Japan, all thanks to my dad's support and the education he gave me. I followed my mom's beliefs and agreed to an arranged marriage. My husband, Akinari, is 6 years older than me. Love wasn't what brought us together. As we started living together, I noticed things that bothered him. The laundry needs washing. We only talk about basic stuff because of our situation. I've been swamped with work emails this week, sorry. That's not an excuse, Han. Lots of wives work and still manage their homes. He was firm about our roles. I work hard, but living together is new to me. I was doing my best to adapt. You're just standing there drinking coffee. How does that help? Drinking coffee helps me wake up and get ready for the day. It's my routine. Mind your own business. Akinari has always been like this since we got married. Maybe he doesn't really love me. He often reminds me that I was homeschooled, so I should be good at housework. Okay, yes, I can handle the housework. You knew that from the beginning. You're so focused on yourself, even though you didn't have a proper education. This household functions because of me. Remember that. We lived in a 4-bedroom house. It was Akinari's dream to own a home, so we took out a loan and got approved. It wasn't something I cared much about, but he made it seem like a manly achievement I wouldn't understand. We never really talked much about our jobs. Education isn't everything, I said simply. Are you testing me? You're belittling my education. According to you, the husband should be the main provider, and the wife should silently follow. Plus, you have a strong accent. People can barely understand you here. We're in Japan, he criticized me for everything. I grew up in the US, so my Japanese won't sound perfect. My mom helped me with pronunciation, but I speak 5 languages. I won't sound like a native Japanese because I'm not. He didn't know this, so he assumed I was unintelligent. I'm going to do the laundry. I'm off today, and Akinari will be leaving for work soon. He's a big germaphobe and always tells me you must bleach the toilet seat after every use. He washed me closely to ensure I cleaned everything after each use. When we moved in together, I used to wear shoes indoors, which is normal in America. Are you white or Japanese? Stop being gross like everyone in America. Take off your shoes, he snapped. In my mind, I thought, I am white. Half white. He was obsessed with cleanliness, always armed with hand sanitizer wipes and disinfectant. At home, he made me feel like I was the messiest person alive. Sorry for the germs, I'd say, wiping things down daily. Honestly, it got annoying. As I loaded the washer, I thought I heard him call, so I went to see what he needed. Did you call me? He snapped back. I did, but you took forever to come. You're just testing my patience. I couldn't hear you. I was doing laundry, and the machine is loud. I explained honestly. You couldn't hear over the washer? Are you deaf? You're pathetic. That's why people without degrees never achieve anything. My husband loved reminding me of my background. I couldn't finish my degree in the US because my father changed jobs. When we moved to Japan, I had to get a degree to work. I passed the entrance exam at a community college known for failures and dropouts. My husband graduated from the University of Tokyo. Coming from America, I didn't realize how prestigious that was until after we got married. But to me, a person's value goes beyond their degree. Is it really such a big deal that I graduated from a community college? What about all the other people in Japan who did too? Do you think less of them as well? I started questioning his values. What's the problem with being a community college graduate? There are many talented people in the world, no matter where they studied. In my company, there are even some who only finished high school, and they're doing great. I don't understand why he's so focused on appearances. In Japan, education is important, but doesn't everyone deserve respect regardless of their education level? I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Oh, so you went to the University of Tokyo, right? Isn't that like the top-notch education? The University of Tokyo? Ha, it's impressive. It's almost funny because you don't even grasp how amazing it is. I'm embarrassed I married someone not as smart as me. If it wasn't for our moms knowing each other, I wouldn't have gone through with this marriage. You don't deserve someone like me. He often talks about himself and points out what I lack compared to him. He enjoys making me feel inferior. In my opinion, people like him shouldn't be the most successful at their jobs. But strangely, his education seemed enough for him to succeed, even though I couldn't relate. I said, I get it. Someone like me doesn't deserve someone as smart as you. Whatever. Just listen to me. I went to the University of Tokyo, so I'll guide you. Just don't try to do things on your own. He's got a big ego and always wants to be in charge. I can't even slightly disagree with him because he always has to have the final word. Okay, time to head to work. Akinari grabbed his suitcase, leaving his coffee half finished, and dashed out the door. I glanced at the table and started tidying up. Isn't this table clean enough? I muttered to myself. 3 hours after he left for work, I got a call. Hello? What? With a subcontractor? Got it. I'll be there ASAP. My company informed me about a mistake found in an order with one of the subcontractors I oversee. They failed to deliver the materials we needed on time for our next project, which would now be delayed. To make matters worse, the materials are coming from overseas, adding extra time and cost. It was supposed to be my day off, but work couldn't wait. When I arrived, everyone was busy, and I immediately met with the team to assess the situation. I reviewed invoices and prioritized materials for the building starting construction soon. I managed a plan for the construction to start next week, but I knew the issue wasn't resolved yet. If the additional materials didn't arrive on time, it would affect future projects too. Normally, the subcontractor would handle such issues, but this time it fell on me. After a tiring day, I finally returned home from work, expecting a relaxing day off. I collapsed into bed and quickly fell asleep. Luda? Luda? I heard my name and stirred awake. I'm sorry, I must have dozed off, I said, though I wasn't truly apologetic. Still, Akinari was quick to judge. You're so privileged. You have a day off and can't even cook dinner for your husband. Instead, you sleep. He was already starting with the criticism, even though I had just woken up. I'm sorry, I had to go to work. There was an urgent situation. I explained, but he retorted, what kind of company calls its employees on their day off? I had a tough day too, you know. He always wanted his problems to take precedence. Perhaps he couldn't handle the idea of his wife being a better employee. It might have been his ego stemming from his prestigious alma mater, the University of Tokyo. Knowing his patterns by now, I tuned him out. Wait, it's 8 o'clock. I glanced at the clock and gasped. I've been asleep for 5 hours since I got home from work. The laundry I started this morning is still in the washer, and I haven't even made dinner. Suddenly, all the tasks I needed to do hit me at once. What are you waiting for? Make dinner first, then clean the tub. After that, do the laundry and the rest of the cleaning. There was a piece of your hair on the floor. It's filthy. His anger hadn't subsided, especially since I had fallen asleep. He never lifted a finger to help around the house since we got married, and he wasn't about to start now. He dictated my tasks and strolled into the living room. I hurried out of bed, washed my face, and started cooking dinner. Just as dinner was almost ready, Akinari's phone rang. "It's me. It's happening again. Just stay quiet for now. Don't say a word. If they find out, we could be sued, and I'll bear the brunt of it. Be careful," he said, then abruptly ended the call. Who was that? Work? Did you mention something about being sued? Is there something going on? I already had a sense that something was going on after overhearing his conversation, but he refused to acknowledge it. "Please just relax. It's not your concern. Besides, even if there was an issue, your small mind wouldn't be able to handle it," he retorted, hitting me with an unexpected insult. I seethed with anger but focused on getting through dinner without responding. "I'm heading to the office," he suddenly declared, swiftly grabbing his phone and wallet. Before I could question him, he was out the door. I noticed he'd left his suitcase behind, and a file protruded from it. "What's this?" As I examined the file, labeled Okadera Mountain Resort Hotel Construction Plan Details, shock shot through me. I quickly snapped a photo with my phone as evidence before carefully returning everything to its place. By the time Akinari returned just before midnight, I was seething. I heard him announce his arrival and head toward the living room. "Welcome back," I greeted him. "I need dinner first," he demanded. I simply replied, "I didn't make any." "What? What did you say? You didn't cook?" He raised his voice. "Yes, I had something more important to attend to," I retorted. "You're making excuses again. How much incompetence can one tolerate? That's why I can't stand you, with your community college background." "I don't even care if we get a divorce at this point," he declared, his tone deadly serious. He was a staunch believer in patriarchal control, always insisting on having his way. I finally reached my breaking point and snapped back, "Fine, let's get a divorce." He was taken aback by my response. "Divorce? What?" he asked, bewildered. I pressed on. "You've been belittling me, making me feel unintelligent, but that's far from the truth." My words struck a nerve, leaving him puzzled. "What do you mean?" he questioned. "I haven't mentioned it because I don't care about school. But I actually attended Harvard University," I revealed. "Harvard? Do you even know what Harvard is?" His shock was evident. "Oh, didn't your mother tell you? I was born and raised in the US. I lived there until I was 18, I explained. "You, what? Are you serious?" Akinari looked pained. His ego took a hit. He had been proud of his degree from Japan's top university, but this revelation reminded him of even more prestigious institutions. "You're joking. There's no way I believe that," he scoffed, growing disrespectful. "Are you feeling offended? You seem to resort to inappropriate remarks when you're caught off guard. I guess the University of Tokyo isn't as prestigious as you thought," I said, surprised by my own assertiveness. "My feelings aren't hurt. I just need proof." "Show me the evidence," he insisted, needing tangible proof to believe my claim. So I showed him a photo from my freshman year orientation. "Can you read English?" "The sign clearly says Harvard Unit," I pointed out. "Don't mock me. I can read that," he retorted, scrutinizing the photo himself. "Do you believe me now? Why did you hide this from me?" "If I had known, I wouldn't have married you," he remarked, his ego clearly wounded. "Was it necessary to feel superior to your wife?" I challenged. "And no, my mom never mentioned it." "And what do you mean you didn't care? It's like you weren't interested in me at all," he deflected, playing the victim. "Isn't it wrong to judge people based on their education? Despite appearances, I can speak 5 languages: English, Japanese, Spanish, French, and Portuguese." "How many can you speak? Being a University of Tokyo graduate, what does intelligence mean to you? What's so impressive about your alma mater?" I taunted, watching him squirm. 5 languages, really? Then why did you attend that community college? It's like you did it to deceive me, and don't even try. "My superiority stems from attending the University of Tokyo," he stubbornly asserted. Clearly, his alma mater held immense significance and prestige in his eyes. I pressed on, sensing his frustration. Judging people solely based on their educational background is narrow-minded. True value lies in someone's ability to excel regardless of where they studied. "That's why I hold a high position in my company," I stated, watching him struggle to process my words. Until now, he had always believed himself to be superior to me. It seemed this revelation shifted his perspective. Never mind, I need to discuss something more urgent, I interjected, steering the conversation back to the main issue. While I knew it was leading towards discussing divorce plans, there was another matter I had to address first. Akinari was taken aback, wondering what else I had to say. Handing him the file I had found earlier, I demanded, "Explain what this is." Before he could respond, I continued, "This is the detailed plan for the Okadera Mountain Resort Hotel construction project. I know it's a significant project you're working on." "How did you?" he began, but I cut him off. "I saw it sticking out of your bag, so I looked. You went through my private work files? Do you realize how serious this is? If this information were to fall into the wrong hands," he started, his voice rising in alarm. "What are you afraid of? Being sued by my company and having the truth exposed? Is that what would happen if this ever got into the wrong hands?" I challenged. Akinari was left speechless, his eyes wide with shock. "We've both been distant from each other. That document is a joint construction project agreement and contract between my company and yours. See where it says cooperating company and XS company. XS company is mine and I'm the vice president," I revealed with a smile. His mouth fell open, a bead of sweat trickling down his face. He began to panic and feigned examining the document. "No, that can't be right. It must be a mistake from my assistant in the material order or something. Are you making excuses now?" "I didn't even mention the material order. We were investigating why we lost contact with your company and realized there was an error in the order. We plan to confirm it later, but your admission just confirmed it," I countered. He covered his mouth, perhaps trying to stop himself from saying more. "It's too late now," he interjected sharply, "and based on what I heard on the phone, it seems you're the one responsible for this mess. You can't even manage to place orders correctly or handle the construction schedule. It's clear that a University of Tokyo graduate doesn't live up to the hype. Or do you still believe you're so brilliant?" He continued, cutting me off before I could respond. "Why does my wife's company have to outshine mine? How is this even possible? This is absurd. I'm intelligent and capable because of my University of Tokyo degree. You know it," he lamented to himself. In response, I calmly stated, "Well, I've never considered you particularly bright." "Oh, please." The sight of his expression makes me nauseous. "As the vice president and head of this project, I'm halting all transactions with your company and seeking damages for this project. Additionally, I'll be filing for divorce." I informed him of the 3 actions I intended to take. "Please, anything but that," my usually disrespectful husband begged, his palms pressed together. "What do you mean anything but that? You mean all 3 actions. All of them. My entire life will crumble at once," he pleaded. "Yes, all of them. It seems it's not just one issue now, is it?" I couldn't help but chuckle at his incompetence. This time, as he watched me laugh at him, he felt a deep sense of shame. I no longer wish to be associated with such incompetence, whether as a couple or a company. "It's time to let go and preserve what dignity you have left," I advised him. At that moment, he seemed to realize he had run out of options. Desperately, he clung to my leg, perhaps in a last-ditch effort to save himself. "Please don't leave me. Don't leave me." The once confident man now sounded desperate, resembling a child being punished by being kicked out of his parents' home. Ignoring his pleas, I made a phone call instead. "Hi, President. I'll explain the details later, but I've identified the person responsible for the project mishap. Yes, I'll ensure damages are claimed properly. Okay, bye." After hanging up, he slowly released my leg and stared at the floor. Exhausted, I decided to head to bed without a word, leaving him behind. The next morning, my husband was nowhere to be found. Before heading to work, I stopped by the courthouse to obtain divorce paperwork, which I kept in my purse. I planned to have him sign the papers after work. Upon arriving at the office, I encountered a commotion at the entrance. Akinari was amidst a group of men, engaged in a heated dispute. "I'm terribly sorry," the president apologized upon seeing me approach. "They've been causing a disturbance for the past 30 minutes, so I decided to call the police." Shortly after, the police arrived and intervened. Amidst the chaos, I couldn't make out what was being said. After giving them a stern warning, the police dispersed the group and they left. That evening, Akinari returned home with a defeated air about him. Without a word, he silently signed the papers I presented. Never subject yourself to such humiliation again, I admonished, but he seemed to be lost in his own world, broken and detached. Ensuring he completed all the paperwork correctly, I gathered my belongings and left without another word, opting to stay in a hotel until I found a new place. The following day, I filed the necessary paperwork to finalize the divorce. Our marriage had lacked love from the start, so I felt neither sadness nor stress over its dissolution. Life continued as usual, and 2 weeks later, I learned that my ex-husband's company had declared bankruptcy. Despite paying the damages to my company, they couldn't sustain future projects due to financial constraints. Consequently, my ex-husband, the project leader, faced legal action from the company, as my boss informed me. Ironically, my ex-husband's emphasis on education as a measure of competence had backfired. His downfall underscored the truth that academic credentials alone don't guarantee success. While Japan values higher education, once in a company, everyone is on equal footing. Success depends on resourcefulness and intentions, not just academic prowess. With this realization, I reaffirmed my belief that a person's educational background isn't paramount. Instead, dedication and determination are what truly matter. Armed with this perspective, I vowed to continue my journey with unwavering dedication, confident that success would follow.
This house belongs to me and my parents. Write up the divorce papers and leave Leon, my husband. He treats me like a maid and always favors his parents. I've been patient until now to not upset my parents, who are happy about our marriage. But if he's going to act like this in front of them, I'm done. Okay, I'll do what you want. I walked out of the room, bringing my upset parents with me. When will he understand all his mistakes? I can't wait for that moment. I'm Jessica, 29 years old. My parents were both 40 when I was born. They really wanted a child, but it was tough, and the treatments for infertility weren't as good back then, so they went through a lot of sadness. Just when they were about to give up, I came along. They still talk about it happily, even now, because I was the child they'd been waiting so long for. My parents showered me with love. When I see my old photos, I can feel how much they cared for me. Even though my parents weren't rich, they made sure to celebrate special occasions like my birthday, Easter, and even my kindergarten graduation in a big way. They were super supportive of my education too. Whenever I showed interest in something, like learning English or reading, they'd jump to support me. They'd enroll me in English classes and buy me lots of books. They always said, "If it helps with your studies, just tell us, and we'll make it happen." Looking back, I realized they must have struggled to pay for all of it, but they never let on. They always had smiles on their faces and threw big celebrations whenever I did well in school. As I got older, my friends would sometimes think my parents were my grandparents, but it didn't bother me. I met my husband, Leon, through a matchmaking service. We both had elderly parents and were only children, so we connected over our similar situations. We shared hobbies and had great conversations. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and we eventually decided to tie the knot. My parents were overjoyed at our wedding and blessed our marriage with tears of love. In the beginning, I was working after we got married. Both of us have elderly parents, which wasn't something we were unhappy about, but we couldn't help but wish they were younger. It's tough to raise kids when you're older. We wanted to start a family soon, so Leon suggested that I quit my job to focus on raising a child. I loved my job, but his words made sense. I remembered my mom telling me about her night shift job and the stress it brought, and how it might have affected their ability to conceive. So I thought it might be a good idea to quit my job and focus on creating the right environment for having a baby. Leon also reassured me by saying, "You can always go back to work when our child is older." That made me feel better about the decision. Luckily, I had a professional certification that meant I could go back to work whenever I wanted. So I decided to leave my job and focus on being a full-time homemaker. But after we got married, Leon's attitude changed. Before, I thought he saw me as an equal, but suddenly, he acted like he was better than me. Being a housewife isn't easy. I had to cook 3 meals a day, do all the cleaning, laundry, and everything else. Things that were no big deal when I lived alone became a challenge, especially since Leon was really picky about everything and wouldn't let anything slide. Dinner should always have at least 3 dishes, and there should be hot pancakes for breakfast. My mom managed it all even while she worked. When I wake up, my suit and shirt should be ready on a hanger. Just grab my bag and go, he'd say, as if that's the least a housewife should do. That's how my parents always did it. Whenever I tried to object, he'd snap back, "You're a housewife, remember? Don't get too high and mighty while living off my money." That became his go-to line. Despite his complaints about me spending his money, what Leon gave for household expenses barely covered it all. I spend my days carefully managing our budget, constantly searching the internet for ways to save money. One day, I mentioned, maybe I should go back to work. Leon shot that idea down with, "You used to work at a law firm, right? Being a secretary won't bring in much. I won't let you neglect the housework for that." So he wouldn't even consider letting me return to work. I wondered if Leon was misunderstanding something, but by then, I was too exhausted from his constant complaints and yelling to argue. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I could keep up with the quality of housekeeping if I also had a job. Plus, I didn't want to disappoint my parents, who were thrilled about our marriage, so I couldn't talk to them about it. But it wasn't just Liam's behavior that bothered me. He often invited his parents over. Whether it was Mother's Day, Father's Day, or their birthdays, he'd find any reason to have them visit and expect me to prepare the meal. Each time, he'd give me extra money, telling me to buy fancy fish or make steak with premium beef. When his parents came over, Leon would shower them with gifts. They'd eat and drink as if our house was theirs, without ever thanking me. Then they'd leave. Once, I brought up to Leon the idea of inviting my parents over occasionally. I told him I admired how he honored his parents, and I didn't oppose it, but I hoped we could also include mine. Leon's response was immediate and harsh. He snapped, "Why would we do that? Understand this, I'm the one paying for everything. Why should I spend money on your parents who aren't even blood related to me?" With that, he shut down the conversation. Feeling defeated, I began using my savings from before we were married to secretly buy gifts for my parents. Then, one day, my parents reached out to me with a troubled look. They explained that there had been a fire in the apartment next to theirs, and part of their home was damaged. Thankfully, they were safe, but their house needed significant repairs. They were temporarily staying in a makeshift shelter. I made the decision to visit my parents, knowing they were going through a difficult time. Despite their troubles, they welcomed me warmly. During our conversation, my father gently asked about my marriage, and although I felt a pang of sadness, I assured him that everything was all right between Leon and me. When I asked about their future plans, my father explained that their old house, which had been partially damaged in a fire, was too old to salvage. They were considering moving into a modern Renaissance apartment. My mother sighed, expressing sadness at the thought of leaving behind the memories in our family's ancestral home. It was then that I made a decision. I resolved to discuss the situation with Leon when I returned home. "Remember when I mentioned my parents' house was damaged in a fire?" I began. Considering their age, I was thinking of buying them a new house, one with accessibility features. Leon's response was blunt. "Where's the money coming from?" "I'm not contributing." As expected, I replied, "I don't plan on building a mansion, so it won't be a financial burden on you. I intend to use my savings from before we were married." After a moment of consideration, Leon casually replied, "Guess even a law firm clerk can save that much." Well, if it's not coming from my pocket, then it's fine. And with that, I made the decision to gift my parents a new home. I felt it was finally time to repay their kindness. Months later, I informed Leon, "I'll be helping my parents move tomorrow." Leon's response was curt. "All right, just don't forget about your household duties," before retreating to the bedroom. The next day, I assisted my parents with their move. Unbeknownst to me, a group of individuals had begun following me. As we carried my parents' belongings into their new home, we settled into the living room, filled with the joy of being reunited as a family after so long. Suddenly, to our astonishment, Leon and my in-laws burst in. With a declaration, Leon announced, "From today, this is my house." Leon's sudden appearance caught me off guard. "What are you doing here?" I asked, surprised. He chuckled, saying, "I heard you were moving today, so I followed you." Confused, I replied, "Moving? What do you mean? This is my parents' house." But Leon insisted, "I've been supporting you all this time. You should be grateful to have married someone like me. Now it's your turn to take care of my parents." His words filled me with disgust. As I stared at him in silence, he coldly declared, "I've canceled the lease on our apartment. Pack your things and leave." My father began to speak, but I silenced him. With a strange calmness, a plan formed in my mind. Instead of my father, I asserted, "This house belongs to my parents and me." Leon laughed, mocking me, "Do you not understand English? I'm saying the house you bought was mine all along. It's not yours, we're your parents. Oh, and I've left divorce papers for you to sign at home. Make sure you submit them." Ignoring my parents' attempts to intervene, I reluctantly acquiesced to Leon's demands. "Fine, I'll do as you say." I conceded, then directed the movers to reload the truck we had just unloaded. While overseeing the process, another truck arrived, bearing Leon's and his parents' belongings. Comforting my bewildered parents, I promised, "I'll explain everything later. Just trust me for now." Together, we vacated the premises. During our journey, I divulged the situation to my parents. I've kept silent about this until now, I confessed. Upon hearing the full story, they grasped the gravity of the situation and commended my actions. Their praise stirred within me a familiar sense of joy, reminiscent of the praise I received from them as a child. A few weeks later, my phone rang incessantly, with Leon's name flashing on the screen. With a sigh, I reluctantly picked up. Before I could even say hello, Leon erupted, "What's going on with this house you bought? Someone's threatening to call the cops if I don't leave." "Yes, that's right," I confirmed, bracing myself for what would come next. Leon's voice rose in disbelief. "So when you said it was our house, you meant this rental?" I couldn't help but chuckle at the misunderstanding. His reaction was immediate and furious. "Stop laughing and explain. Wasn't this house meant for your parents?" Taking a deep breath, I began to unravel the tangled web of miscommunication. I clarified to Leon the sequence of events. How the house I purchased for my parents was undergoing renovations, but due to a mistake by the renovation company, it wasn't ready on time. In a last-minute scramble, they arranged for us to stay in a model home until the renovations were completed. However, Leon and his parents mistakenly moved into the model home before we could explain the situation. Seizing the opportunity for revenge after Leon's outburst, I chose to play along with his misunderstanding. Following that ordeal, I relocated all our belongings to a rented storage unit and temporarily stayed in a hotel with my parents. Following Leon's instructions, I proceeded with the divorce papers, ultimately ending our marriage. My parents expressed their wish that I had confided in them earlier, but I believe it all worked out for the best. Being with my parents during that time was invaluable, and I successfully parted ways with Leon. Now, we're happily settled in our newly renovated home. I made sure not to disclose our new address to Leon, ensuring he remained unaware of our whereabouts. On one occasion, he questioned how I planned to support myself without him, assuming I was merely a stay-at-home wife. With a touch of disdain, I clarified, "You've been mistaken all this time. I'm actually a professional lawyer." Leon appeared taken aback, his response tinged with confusion. Reflecting on our initial meeting at a matchmaking service, I remembered how Leon had asked about my profession. At the time, I mentioned working at a law firm, but he assumed I was a secretary. I didn't correct him then, as I'd grown accustomed to people reacting negatively when I mentioned being a lawyer. It surprised me that Leon still thought of me as a secretary. It revealed his lack of interest in truly knowing me. It seemed he preferred the idea of a housewife over an equal partner. Realizing this, I calmly explained, as we're married, I could rightfully claim ownership of the property purchased with my pre-marriage savings. Asserting my rights, I continued, those savings remain mine and aren't subject to division. If you have objections, we can settle it in court, but the outcome is clear. With that, silence greeted me from the other end of the line. Disregarding Leon's remarks, I bid him farewell with a simple, "Take care of your parents," before ending the call. Details of what ensued reached me through a former colleague, now a fellow attorney. Despite his repeated attempts to reach out, I found it necessary to communicate with him solely through legal representation. Leon persisted in demanding the return of money spent during our marriage. After negotiations with our respective lawyers, he reluctantly grasped the impracticality of his request, though not without disappointment. Such reactions were to be expected. After all, I had become a stay-at-home wife at his insistence, and it was his obligation as a husband to provide for our family. Fulfilling my duties as a homemaker, I never faltered. With the termination of our apartment lease initiated by Leon, he found himself without a place to stay. Presently, he has resettled in the cramped condo where his parents reside, the three of them uncomfortably sharing the limited space. Leon's financial situation was dire. His meager salary coupled with his lavish spending on personal pursuits and gifts for his parents left him virtually penniless. Despite our previous circumstances, Leon had begun expressing a desire for a larger house. It seemed he concocted this plan after I mentioned to my parents my own aspirations of buying a home. Needless to say, his scheme failed spectacularly. To assume we would vacate quietly, even if it were a temporary residence, displayed a level of naivety that was almost laughable. It's disheartening to realize just how misguided my ex-husband could be. Now weary of caring for his parents in their cramped condo, Leon has persistently sought reconciliation. However, now that he is aware of my profession as a lawyer, I have chosen to ignore his advances. Currently, I am relishing the comforts of my new home alongside my parents. The idea of remarriage isn't particularly appealing to me at the moment. However, a fellow attorney whom I collaborated with during my divorce from Leon has expressed interest. I am considering adopting a more optimistic outlook, perhaps to grant my beloved parents the joy of meeting their grandchildren sooner. I checked my phone and noticed I had 13 missed calls, all from my mother-in-law, Martha. Not again. While thinking about this, my phone vibrated once more. I answered, "Hello." Martha sounded angry. "Excuse me. Wasn't the allowance for this month supposed to be $3,000? It's overdue? Excuse me. I told you to send the allowance. This month's payment hasn't been deposited yet." Martha ranted, ignoring my situation and only thinking about what she wanted. I was fed up with her. Even in this situation, she doesn't think about what she says and does, right? I have no choice but to go for my last option. I gathered my thoughts and told my phone, "Your son has passed away, so I can't send an allowance anymore. I'm Jennifer Smith, 32 years old, a busy woman working at a major financial firm and a housewife. I got married about 2 years ago to my beloved husband, Mark, whom I met through our shared hobbies. His kind nature and warm smile drew me in, and we quickly developed feelings for each other. After a year of dating, we got engaged, both convinced that we were the best for each other. We lived together without major quarrels and decided to marry. Everything was smooth until a problem arose. Martha, my mother-in-law. My father-in-law passed away a few years ago, leaving Martha as Mark's only family. The trouble began when I first visited her before our wedding. "Nice to meet you." Martha clearly showed displeasure. "So, you're Mark's fiancé?" "Yes, I'm Jennifer Miller." "You're a rather plain girl. I wonder what Mark sees in you, huh?" I couldn't tell if she was joking or serious. Having such words from my loved one's mother shocked me. Observing my distress, Mark scowled at Martha. "Hey, Mom, what's with the sudden harsh words? How can you say such things about the person I chose?" "No, Mark, I'm just trying to pick a suitable woman for you." "Pick? I'm the one who chose her. You have no right to interfere. Don't say it in such a cold way. I'm just telling the truth because I care about you. If you were really thinking of me, you'd simply support us. Why can't you understand such a simple thing?" An argument unfolded between mother and son right before my eyes, making the air heavy. As it was my first meeting with Martha, I wasn't in a position to intervene. Despite the lingering awkwardness, we eventually convey our intent to marry. As we were leaving, Martha called out to Mark, sounding somewhat disgruntled. Mark, can I have a word? You're going to keep that promise after you get married, right? What promise? You know about the allowance. Ah, that. Yes, I'll be sure to take care of that. Can we not discuss it here, please? Well, I was just asking. The tension between my husband and his mother persisted, and discomfort hung thick in the air. In the car on the way home, I questioned Mark about the conversation he had with his mom as we were leaving. Hey, Mark, about the talk you had with your mom. Yeah, I should have told you about it, Jennifer. I heard something about an allowance. After my dad passed away, I've been sending money to my mom every month. How much? $2,000. What? $2,000? I couldn't help but raise my voice in surprise. He sighed deeply and began to explain slowly. Actually, my mom has a debt. She lost a lot of money at a casino a long time ago, and she's still paying it off. Her health isn't great these days, so she spends a lot of time at home. But she still needs money to live, right? But $2,000, isn't that a bit too much? If I try to lower the amount, she keeps calling me over and over. And no matter what, a mother is still a mother. I worry about her living alone. I see. Mark is really devoted to his mother, but that makes sense. Since his father passed away, Martha has been the only family he has left. Regardless of her character, she's still his beloved mother. At that time, I only saw my husband as a kind person. 2 months after our wedding, during my lunch break one day, I got a call on my smartphone. The call was from Martha. When I answered with a hello, Martha began to speak cheerfully. Jennifer, long time no see. Can we chat for a bit? Yes, what can I do for you? Well, I was hoping you could start sending me money. Excuse me? I was so taken aback, I couldn't find words to respond. However, Martha seemed excited to continue the conversation. You mentioned before that you're working for a financial company, right? That means you have a good salary, doesn't it? Well, not exactly. What, you're lying to avoid giving me money? That's not what I mean. Then what is it? But Martha, you're still receiving financial support from Mark, aren't you? To my question, Martha responded defiantly. So what? Jennifer sternly expressed her feelings. Martha, getting $2,000 monthly support is a big deal. And yet you're asking for more. Really? You think so? If you were to send me an additional $1,000, I could avoid burdening Mark. What do you mean by that? Well, I have Mark as a guarantor for my debts. If I fail to make payments, the debt collectors will go after him. Do you understand? But aren't you using part of Mark's $2,000 to pay back the debt? I'm short. I haven't told Mark, but I have a significant amount of debt. Martha's tone made it clear that this was a fact. Even her husband was unaware of it. With future plans of having children, our expenses were set to increase. On top of that, taking over Martha's debt wasn't an easy task. But if Martha's payments fell behind and the debt landed on Mark, the interest would likely accumulate significantly by then. If I refused to send money, it would eventually become a problem for my husband. It seemed better for Martha to clear her debt now. Reluctantly, I agreed to Martha's proposal. All right, I'll start sending you money. Really? Good God, Jennifer. I knew you would say that. The total, with Mark's contribution, will be $3,000. But this means you can pay off your debt, right? Yes, of course. I should be able to pay it all off in about a year. You promise, right? You'll make sure to pay off all your debts? I get it. So I'll be expecting it from this month onwards. Martha ended the call abruptly. The combination of physical exhaustion from work and this emotional burden only added to my stress. $1,000 a month, that's going to be rough, but it's also to prevent future problems for us. After all, if Martha can't make a living, it will upset Mark as well. That night, I promptly reported the matter to my husband. He told me I didn't have to do this, but I had already given my word to Martha, and it was a decision made for our future well-being. Mark expressed his gratitude and understanding, wearing a sorry expression throughout. Time passed, and 2 years have gone by. The financial support we initially thought would last a year is still ongoing. And even now, we're sending $3,000 every month to Martha. Moreover, about 2 months ago, Mark fell ill and hasn't been able to work. He's on sick leave, receiving disability benefits, but it's much less than his previous salary. Last month, I managed to transfer $3,000 to Martha from my savings, but if this situation continues, it will be very challenging. Shockingly, Martha has not visited her sick son even once. Despite informing her about his hospitalization, she doesn't show up and only contacts me to ask, "You're still sending the money, right?" I was furious and decided to talk to Mark about it. "Mark, listen. Isn't it wrong that Martha is only concerned about money despite your condition? We need to seriously consider what to do moving forward." "Yeah, I've been thinking the same thing. I don't want to put more strain on you, Jennifer. This month, too, she's bombarding me with calls and messages, asking if we've sent the money yet. Can you believe it? How could she focus solely on money when her son is unwell?" Mark expressed his frustration at his mother, his face showing signs of weariness. Then, with a sudden idea, Mark exclaimed, "I've got it," and flashed a sly grin. "What is it, Mark?" I inquired. "Well, this is our last option. I've thought of something unconventional." "Yeah, for my mom?" "What?" Mark proposed a plan beyond my imagination. While it might be considered inappropriate, it appeared to be the only way to get Martha to comprehend. A few weeks later, Mark was discharged from the hospital. Since Martha hadn't responded to any of our messages, we didn't inform her about Mark's release. In the past 2 weeks, Martha had persistently demanded the money. While Mark and I were enjoying a cup of tea, a message popped up on my phone. Upon checking, I saw 13 missed calls from Martha again. As expected, my phone vibrated once more. It was another call from Martha. "Hello," I responded, activating the speaker microphone so that Mark could also listen. Martha immediately started shouting, "Listen, where's the $3,000 for this month?" "Excuse me, that's right. The money for this month hasn't been transferred yet." "Do you realize Mark is now?" I began, but Martha cut me off, saying, "I don't care if he's in the hospital or whatever. It's none of my business. You're working at a good place, right? You must have plenty of savings. Hurry up and transfer it here." Martha was yelling angrily. Eventually, she said something unbelievable. "Listen, since you married Mark, if he can't pay, you have to pay me. Understand? If you refuse, I'll make you the guarantor. Got it?" At that moment, something inside me snapped. She was openly expressing her demands without considering our situation at all. I had reached my breaking point with her. I had no choice but to resort to the last option. I firmly declared into my smartphone, "Mark has passed away. I can't send you any more money." At these words, Martha blurted out a baffled "what?" This was the final step that my husband suggested, to lie to Martha about Mark's death and observe her reaction. If she showed any sign of sadness, reflected on her behavior, and apologized, we would continue to support her financially. But if she didn't reflect and demanded money, we would sever ties completely. Deep down, I believed that even someone like Martha would deeply reflect on her actions if she were told that her own son had died. But in the very next moment, Martha burst into loud laughter. "Yay, what's so funny?" I asked. "Well, isn't it obvious? If Mark is dead, that means his inheritance will be distributed to me too." "Excuse me. I've been looking into it since I heard that Mark was sick. Listen here, 2/3 of Mark's assets are yours, but 1/3 is mine." I was at a loss for words. I never thought that when she first heard that her son was sick, she wouldn't look into treatment, but into how the inheritance would be divided. My anger surpassed. I was simply dumbfounded. My husband seemed to feel the same way, and as our eyes met, he slowly nodded. This was the signal to continue with the plan. Once again, I spoke firmly to Martha. "Martha, did you hear what I said? Mark is dead." "I heard, and what about it? Aren't you sad your own son passed away before you? You just make sure to send me some." I won't let you get away with not doing it. With a click, the phone line was cut off, and a dial tone echoed. I glanced at my husband and saw that he was shaking, his face red with anger. Mark, are you okay? I asked. As I asked, my husband looked into my eyes and said, I'm cutting ties with her. She'll likely come here eventually, demanding money. Let's wait until then, okay? But are you really okay with this, cutting off ties just like that? I inquired. Yeah, I have no regrets. After that call, she's no mother. My husband's eyes were filled with hatred, and I felt the same way. A person who only thinks about money over her own son's life is not family to me. A few days later, as we expected, Martha came to our house. For the time being, I decided to hide my husband in the next room and deal with Martha myself. Then Martha approached me with a face like a demon. Hey, give me Mark's inheritance right now, she demanded. Again with that. Anything else to say? He's already dead, isn't he? It's pointless to say anything now. Yakin never even visited him. What are you saying? Are you really his mother? You're so annoying. Give me the inheritance right away. I don't mind getting a lawyer. Speaking more would be a waste of time. Just as I thought that, my husband emerged from the next room. Seeing him, Martha let out a startled gasp, as if she had seen a ghost. Mark, why weren't you dead? Long time no see, Mom. Sorry, but the news about my death was a lie. Lie? How could you be so disrespectful? I wanted to confirm your true nature, Mom. I was curious about how you'd handle the allowance if your son, died. But you turned it out to be a gold digger, just as I suspected. I got that perfectly. What? How dare you call your mother a gold digger? Silence. I'm cutting ties with a toxic parent like you. Martha's mouth was agape at my husband's angry shouts. She could not come to terms with the fact that her own son was severing ties with her. What? What does this mean, Mark? It means exactly what I said. I can't consider someone like you as my mother. No way. Then what about the allowance? Do you really think I would? You're on your own with the debts. We're moving. Wait, please. If you do that, what about my living expenses? With tears in her eyes, Martha reached out to my husband. He forcefully shook off her hand, looked at her coldly, and said, I don't care about your living expenses. You have been living off us without even a single apology. I really understand your despicable nature now. Don't you dare show up in front of us again. No, wait, Mark. Are you going to abandon your mother? Ignoring her words, my husband seized Martha's arm and guided her to the front door. He tossed her shoes and bag outside and escorted Martha out of the house. Martha created a commotion outside for a while but eventually disappeared, possibly unable to withstand the scrutiny of the neighbors. Despite her multiple attempts to contact us, we ignored all of them. Martha's number was set to be automatically rejected, and we completed our move. Regarding the issue of co-signing for the debts, it became invalid since Martha had made Mark the co-signer without his consent, absolving him of responsibility. Without the allowance from us, Martha seems to be leading a challenging life. It's only natural, given that she had been using the allowance for gambling instead of settling her debts. She still faces a substantial debt burden and is pursued by debt collectors daily. Unable to indulge in gambling anymore, she appears to be working tirelessly from dawn to dusk. It's unlikely that she will be able to fully clear her debts in the foreseeable future. She will have to keep working until she is physically unable to do so. This is entirely a consequence of her own actions. As for us, we are enjoying fulfilling days in our new home. My husband's health has stabilized, and he has returned to work. After some time, we discovered a new life growing in my belly. We are expecting an additional member in our family next year. Moving forward, we aim to cherish happy moments as a family of 3. Hi, I'm a lady who works as a cook. I recently got married, and I'm really enjoying being a newlywed. I usually keep my past to myself and don't talk much about it. I don't have many friends, but I tell people I grew up like any other kid, even though it wasn't that simple. I had a tough childhood. But I was lucky to have my grandpa who loved me a lot. He was like my only family because I didn't have parents around. My grandpa worked hard, sometimes at construction sites or collecting and selling things like paper or fruits and veggies. I don't have baby photos because we couldn't afford them, but when I turned 6, my grandpa made sure I had a picture taken every year on my birthday to capture my growth. I didn't go to kindergarten, but my grandpa taught me basics like the alphabet and numbers. My grandpa didn't have much money, but he was well respected in our neighborhood. The neighbors would pitch in to help take care of me because they knew my grandpa was working hard to raise me. This meant I got to have warm meals and play with the older kids in the neighborhood, who taught me a lot of things. When my grandpa finished work, he'd come get me. Our house was small and old, with just one bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom. It could get pretty uncomfortable in the extremes of weather, but we managed okay. In the summer, my grandpa fixed up an old fan he found, and in the winter, he washed and reused old blankets to keep me warm. He did everything he could to take care of me, even though we didn't have much. Our neighbors were also struggling, but they still helped us a lot. They came to school with me on my first day, took turns attending parent-teacher meetings at my grandpa's request, and even packed food for my school trips as a way to say thank you for his hard work. My grandpa was a handyman who could fix just about anything around the house. In our friendly neighborhood, people helped each other out with their skills, but gossip still circulated. Some folks couldn't help but wonder why my grandpa was raising me alone in such tough circumstances. He never really talked about my parents when I was growing up. Whenever I asked, he'd just say they had passed away soon after I was born and were now in heaven. When I was younger, I thought they had died from some serious illness like cancer. But as I got older, I started hearing different stories, mainly from the women in the neighborhood. They'd whisper about how my grandpa had never been married and how nobody had ever seen my mom or dad. It was confusing because my grandpa had always told me they were my real parents. And if I had parents, shouldn't I have had a grandma too? It didn't add up. As I listened to her, I realized something strange. We didn't have any family photos of my parents, not even one of my grandma. Our photo album only contained pictures that my grandpa insisted we take every year, along with some snapshots our neighbors had taken of us. When I reached middle school and started going through puberty, I began to rebel a bit, questioning my identity more and more. Living only with my grandpa made it even harder. I had so many questions about my parents, and by 9th grade, I couldn't hold them in any longer. I sat my grandpa down and bombarded him with questions, desperate for answers about where my mom and dad were, whether they were alive or dead, and why there were no photos of them or my grandma. I felt like I was interrogating him like a criminal, but I needed to know. As I got emotional and started crying, my grandpa just held me close and reassured me. He explained that my parents couldn't raise me, so they left me with him when I was a baby, hoping to come back for me someday. He showed me a small bracelet they had left behind, saying it was with me when I was born in the hospital. Seeing that bracelet, some of my curiosity eased. Even though I learned that my parents had abandoned me, knowing that my grandpa loved me and raised me with care was enough. From that day on, I started to find some peace within myself. I began to see a way out of the challenges of puberty. College wasn't an option for me due to our financial situation, and I didn't want to add to my grandpa's burdens, so I made up my mind about my career before even starting high school. "Grandpa," I said, "I want to be a cook." I planned to take career classes during my senior year, earn my cooking license, and find a job right after graduation. My grandpa asked if I was sure I didn't want to go to college, offering to do whatever it took to save up for tuition. I reassured him that cooking was my passion and that I wanted to set things up so he wouldn't feel guilty about it. True to my word, once I reached my senior year of high school, I dove into cooking classes and earned several licenses. I secured a job a month before graduation and received my first paycheck just a week after. With it, I bought some steak to celebrate, though I couldn't afford to dine out. Back home, I surprised my grandpa with the steak and handed him an envelope containing some of my earnings. "This is for you, Grandpa," I said. "It's what's left after buying the steaks." My grandpa was speechless. "Patty," he finally said, "I can't accept this. You worked hard for this money. You should use it for yourself. I can't possibly take it." He insisted, pushing the envelope back toward me. "Grandpa, if you don't take it, I'll leave home. Why should you be the only one doing things for me? I really wanted to give you this money," I threatened, feeling a surge of frustration. Eventually, my grandpa relented, tears welling up as he accepted the envelope. He tucked it into a book he enjoyed reading. Sharing that steak meal in the place I'd always called home felt incredibly special. For the first time in my life, I felt proud to do something for my grandpa. We chatted happily as we ate, until a knock interrupted us. Who could be knocking at this hour? My grandpa wondered aloud as I went to answer the door. To our surprise, two police officers stood there. "Is Richard O'Leary here?" they asked, and I confirmed that he was my grandpa. "And you must be Patty Rowland?" they inquired, and I affirmed that too. "Both of you need to come with us to the police station," they stated matter-of-factly. When I asked why, they informed us, "Mr. O'Leary is being accused of kidnapping a child. You both need to come with us." I was stunned. Kidnapping? I couldn't fathom why my grandpa was being accused of such a heinous crime. I protested that he wasn't that kind of person, but the police insisted we accompany them. That night, my grandpa and I found ourselves in a police car, headed to the station. Despite the gravity of the situation, my grandpa remained oddly calm. We waited in a designated area until eventually, the police returned with some other individuals accompanying them. A woman in her 50s entered the room, accompanied by a couple holding hands. She approached us, pointing accusingly at my grandpa. "That's him. He's the one who kidnapped the president's daughter." She exclaimed loudly, shocked and confused. I demanded answers. "What do you mean? Who did my grandpa supposedly kidnap?" I shouted back at her. The police intervened, trying to calm both the woman and me down. Behind the shouting woman, the couple stepped forward, and the woman addressed me with tears in her eyes. "Are you Patty?" she asked, and I awkwardly nodded in response. Suddenly, she embraced me and burst into tears. "Patty, it's Mom. I'm your mother." Her words hit me like a bolt from the blue. I was stunned and bewildered, but my grandpa's composed demeanor added to my confusion. He stood up calmly and addressed her. "So, you've finally returned. Only now. Are you okay?" The woman in her 50s scoffed, accusing my grandpa of kidnapping. I vehemently protested his innocence, while the couple watched on, clearly perplexed. The woman in her 50s went on to explain that a couple had visited her orphanage, claiming they had left their baby there and had now returned to reclaim their child. They left behind a letter stating their intention to return for the child, along with hospital paperwork. I was about 3 or 4 at the time. However, despite searching through records and adoption papers, we found nothing about the child. Then, a distant memory surfaced. There was a child who went missing years ago, causing a major commotion. Despite reporting to the police and filing missing child reports, she was never found. I recalled an old man who used to work at the orphanage abruptly quitting around that time. He had been overly attentive to the children, and I had considered firing him before he vanished. Could he have been involved in kidnapping a child from the orphanage, leaving behind a distraught woman? We underwent DNA testing as my grandpa calmly observed the couple. He asked the police, "Are they truly Patty's parents?" The police insisted we wait for the results. Then, my grandpa pleaded with the officers, offering to stay in jail if necessary, but asking for the chance to tell his side of the story. Grasping the officer's hands, he began to speak. The police acknowledged his right to defend himself. Grandpa agreed to share his story once the DNA confirmed the couple's parentage. Reluctantly, the police consulted the couple, who agreed to the arrangement if it meant hearing the truth. While awaiting the DNA results, my grandpa remained at home under recognizance, and I continued my routine, going to and from work. 2 days later, the DNA results came in, showing a 99.99% match. After 20 years, I finally met my parents. Hearing the news, I was overcome with a strange mix of emotions. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably, but my parents embraced me, soothing my sobs. The orphanage director glared at my grandpa with fury, as if she could kill him on the spot. "Now you must arrest this old man for kidnapping. Were you planning to ruin my establishment?" She raged, her anger palpable. True to his word, my grandpa began his tale, producing a stack of papers from home and presenting them to the police one by one. "It's true that I worked as a janitor at the orphanage, not far from where I live now," he began. "One morning, I arrived early to find a young child sleeping outside the orphanage, curled up in a ball. I assumed she had been abandoned by her parents. Concerned for her well-being, I tried to bring her inside, but she woke up and, with her black eyes, called me Grandpa." Grandpa continued, explaining how the child handed him a bag containing a doll, paperwork, and a letter promising to return for their daughter. "I took her into the orphanage, where she began to live," he recounted. "While cleaning, I often saw the child, but she always seemed to have a dark expression. It wasn't until about a month later that I discovered the reason. The woman was abusing her, especially when the orphanage faced financial strain due to overcrowding. Another child had arrived, and she took out her frustration on this poor girl." Grandpa described how the child was forced to do arduous chores, her hands red and bleeding from the harsh treatment. "I confronted the director multiple times, urging her to stop mistreating the child," he continued. "But instead of listening, she fired me. As I was leaving, I couldn't bear to see the child so unhappy. That's why I did what I did," my grandpa explained, his voice tinged with remorse. He recounted how he had taken me in after witnessing the neglect and abuse I suffered under the orphanage director's care. "The director didn't even bother to read the documents in the bag," he continued, "neglecting her duties and subjecting me to abuse. That's why I took Patty in, to protect her and raise her as my own granddaughter." After his revelation, the police and I were left in a state of uncertainty. The orphanage director, however, remained defiant, accusing my grandpa of fabricating stories to tarnish her reputation. "I'll sue you for slander," she threatened, her voice dripping with venom. The police pressed my grandpa for evidence to support his claims. With confidence, he mentioned a former employee, Mrs. Cumberland, who could attest to the abuse. While we awaited Mrs. Cumberland's testimony, I was speechless, grappling with the truth unfolding before me. In the late afternoon, Mrs. Cumberland arrived at the police station, armed with photographs she had taken of my injured hands and other signs of abuse. My parents, upon seeing the evidence, were overcome with emotion. The undeniable proof left the orphanage director cornered, and my parents wasted no time in announcing their intention to sue her for her crimes. Despite her pleas for forgiveness, she was arrested and charged with child abuse. That night, my grandpa and I returned home, the weight of the day's revelations heavy on our minds. From my parents, I learned the heartbreaking truth. They had left me at the orphanage due to financial hardship, hoping to reclaim me once they were stable. When they finally returned, they discovered I was missing and unregistered. Only recently did they learn of the possibility that my grandpa had taken me in. Although their actions couldn't be excused, my parents found solace in the fact that they had finally found me after years of searching. They faced repercussions for abandoning me, but now they sought to alleviate their guilt. I harbored no resentment toward my parents. I was simply eager and anxious to finally meet them. Nor did I hold any blame toward my grandpa, who had saved me and showered me with love and care during my time with him. His unwavering support was the reason I couldn't hate my parents. I assured them that I understood their circumstances and expressed gratitude for their efforts to find me. As my mom hugged me, tears streaming down her face, she knelt before my grandpa. "Without him, I wouldn't have had such a wonderful upbringing," she acknowledged. Despite his protests, my parents insisted on taking care of him and urged us to live together as one family. Eventually, we moved in with my parents, but the adjustment wasn't easy, as we had spent more time apart than together. Eventually, my parents arranged for a separate house for my grandpa and me next to theirs, allowing us to live comfortably while still being close to family. After work, we would gather for dinner and watch TV together, just like any other family. After I got married, my parents invited my grandpa to live with us, and we seamlessly merged into one big family. Meanwhile, my parents pursued legal action against the orphanage director, adamant that they couldn't forgive her. During the proceedings, I met my husband, who was working as a prosecutor on the case. He admired my grandpa's selflessness in raising a child who wasn't his own for nearly 2 decades. It made me reflect on whether I could have done the same in his shoes. I hold my grandpa in the highest regard and wish him a long and healthy life. Thank you all for listening to my story. Your support and comments mean a lot to me. Wishing you all a day filled with happiness and good fortune.
I caught my husband in the act of cheating, an experience I never thought I'd have. Most people would likely confront their spouse upon discovering evidence of infidelity, but I stumbled upon the truth firsthand in a setting I never anticipated, surrounded by unsuspecting witnesses. Suspicions about their relationship had lingered in my mind, but nothing prepared me for witnessing my husband's betrayal so publicly. My name is Christina, a stay-at-home mom to a 6-year-old son. On the day of the incident, my husband had a rare day off, and we had plans for a family outing. However, when I awoke, he was already gone. A message informed me he was tending to his feverish sister, and with no one else home, he expected to return in the evening. As the message came through, a heavy sigh escaped my lips. I had promised my son a day of fun at the amusement park, and he had eagerly anticipated it since the day before. I knew my husband had been shouldering a significant workload lately, immersed in a major project for the past 6 months without respite. This day was meant to be a rare opportunity for our family to bond. Instead, he chose to attend to his sister's needs. She supposedly had a fiancé, rendering her capable of managing on her own. Yet my husband's penchant for playing caretaker to his sister prevailed. It wasn't the first time his sister's needs took precedence over our family plans. His fixation on his sister had always unsettled me. He once admitted that he was drawn to me because of my resemblance to her, coupled with my supposedly exceptional qualities. While I acknowledged his sister's beauty and kindness when I met her long ago, being likened to her always left me feeling uneasy. It seemed the highest compliment he could offer, but the underlying implications left me feeling uncomfortable. My husband used to express his desire for both a son and a daughter, often initiating intimacy. However, since the birth of our son, there's been a noticeable decline in our physical connection to the point where it's non-existent now. Considering our youth and my husband's prior enjoyment of intimacy, suspicions arise that he may be seeking it elsewhere. Betrayal is one thing I could perhaps forgive, albeit reluctantly, but what troubles me more is his consistent absence, even on days off like today. Spending time with our child should be a natural inclination, yet he seems indifferent. Our son, deeply attached to his father, becomes distraught when he's absent. Despite ample opportunities, my husband fails to engage with our son, neglecting simple gestures like birthday gifts or attending school functions. Instead, he retreats to his room, engrossed in endless gaming sessions, disconnected from family life. If this continues, our once close father-son bond risks fading into unfamiliarity. I grew increasingly skeptical of my husband's claims about being engrossed in a major project, considering his prolonged absences from home. Seeking clarification, I reached out to a former classmate employed at the same company. Is my husband truly buried in work as he claims? I inquired, a hint of suspicion in my tone. My classmate chuckled before responding, absolutely not. If anything, your husband has earned a reputation as a window-side employee. He appears disinterested and clocks out on time every day. Confirmation of my suspicions sent a wave of realization crashing over me. It aligned perfectly with my observations. Despite purportedly leading a significant project, his modest salary and lack of exhaustion contradicted his narrative. Such inconsistencies only fueled my doubts about his fidelity. Frustration weighed heavily on me as I finished preparing breakfast. Glancing at the time, I furrowed my brow in concern. It was unusual for my son not to be up by 7 a.m., especially since he typically woke early. Now, it was already past that hour, and if we didn't hurry, he'd miss the nursery school bus. Hastily, I made my way to his room to rouse him. Entering his room, I found him still fast asleep. "It's morning, sweetheart, time to wake up," I called out, expecting a swift response. Instead, All I heard was a strained groan. Alarmed, I reached out to touch his forehead and was met with intense heat. Anxiety surged through me as I gently shook his shoulder, urging him to wake. "Mama, I can't breathe," he murmured weakly, his words sending a chill down my spine. Panic threatened to consume me as thoughts raced through my mind. With news of an outbreak at the nursery school circulating, dread seized me. Could my son be afflicted too? Reports of children succumbing to the illness only heightened my fear, and I dreaded the possibility of losing him. In a frantic bid for help, I reached for my phone, dialing my husband's number repeatedly. Yet each attempt went unanswered, leaving me to grapple with fear and uncertainty alone. Without a moment to spare, I bypassed waiting for an email response and reached out to my mother for urgent first aid guidance. With her nursing expertise, she was my go-to expert in moments like these. Swiftly following her precise instructions, I fashioned an ice pack and took my son's temperature, finding it alarmingly high at over 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Without hesitation, I dialed for an ambulance and tended to my son, ensuring he stayed hydrated while awaiting medical assistance. Concerned about the potential for heat stroke, as my mother had cautioned, I acted swiftly to mitigate any further risks. As the ambulance arrived, I faced the sobering reality that I couldn't accompany my son due to infection precautions. Left with no alternative, I hailed a taxi and hurried to the hospital where he would be treated. Throughout the ordeal, I persisted in attempting to reach my husband, despite knowing the futility of my efforts. Dishearteningly, my attempts went unanswered, prompting me to leave a desperate message online, clinging to the hope that he might see it and respond if he possessed a shred of responsibility. Upon reaching the hospital, I anxiously awaited outside the emergency treatment room, fervently praying for my son's swift recovery. Memories of losing my father in a similar emergency room flooded my mind, igniting fears of losing my son as well. As I grappled with the possibility of another devastating loss, my mother, a steadfast source of support, offered reassurance, her words a comforting refrain amidst the turmoil. An hour later, relief washed over me as I received news of my son's rescue. However, medical advice dictated a week-long hospital stay for his recovery, prompting his transfer to a hospital room. Despite the harrowing ordeal, my husband remained absent, compounding my sense of isolation. Determined to provide for my son's needs, I returned home the following day to gather essentials and decided to bring him some fruit as a gesture of care. Wanting to express gratitude to the doctor who had aided us, I made a detour past the emergency room, only to find chaos unfolding within its confines. Sensing I might be in the way, I postponed my visit to the doctor, turning to head towards my son's room. It was then that I witnessed a startling sight. A man and a woman on a stretcher, their bodies entwined as if caught in a bizarre embrace. The scene hinted at a precarious situation, one where they appeared to be joined together, perhaps a consequence of a mishap during intimate moments. I navigated the chaotic scene, my mind filled with sympathy for those caught in such a vulnerable predicament. The embarrassment of being transported in such a manner must be excruciating, I mused, attempting to pass by discreetly. However, my thoughts were abruptly interrupted as my gaze locked with that of a familiar face. Under ordinary circumstances, the encounter might have been merely awkward. Yet for me, it was nothing short of shocking. My husband lay on the stretcher, his expression betraying surprise at our unexpected reunion. "What are you doing here?" I blurted out, astonishment coloring my voice. Caught off guard, my husband stammered, well, I've caught my sister's cold," his words faltering in the face of my inquiry. Confusion clouded my mind as I grappled with the surreal coincidence of encountering my husband in the same emergency room where our son had been admitted just the day before. Questions swirled in my head as I watched him being transported, unclothed, alongside another woman. Who was she, and why were they together? Amidst my bewilderment, my gaze met the eyes of the woman accompanying my husband. Despite the chaos, a flicker of recognition sparked within me. Even in my state of disarray, I couldn't deny the truth staring back at me. This woman was my husband's mistress. As I glared at her, a familiar voice cut through the tumult, pulling me from my thoughts. "Why on earth is Christina here?" the voice exclaimed. Recognition dawned upon me. Of course, the woman beside my husband was none other than Brenna, his sister. Time seemed to stretch out endlessly as I processed the surreal unfolding of events. Suspicions of my husband's deceit had simmered within me, but I never anticipated this revelation. Even if he had come to check on our son, his entanglement with another woman, especially his own sister, was beyond comprehension. Despite the urge to confront them immediately, the sight of my husband and his sister being wheeled away on a stretcher forced me to restrain myself. I knew they couldn't evade scrutiny, so I resolved to address the situation later. Suppressing the surge of emotions, I redirected my focus to my son, the initial reason for my visit. With a heavy weight settling in my chest, I sought solace in his room, attempting to untangle the jumble of feelings swirling within me. When I checked my phone, it was flooded with messages from my husband, each one attempting to gloss over the situation. Notably absent was any mention of our son's hospitalization. Deciding to continue ignoring him, I waited patiently for another hour. Soon enough, the doctor who had tended to my son the previous day appeared. Their smile was reassuring as they delivered the news. Your son is doing remarkably well. His recovery is progressing faster than anticipated. His fever has subsided and his condition has stabilized. Initially, we were concerned about the possibility of infection, but it seems he was suffering from heat stroke in addition to a cold. The doctor's praise for my actions brought a sense of validation, even though I knew much of it was owed to my mother's guidance. I made a mental note to express my gratitude to her, perhaps with a thoughtful gift of fancy meat next time. I offered a deep bow of gratitude to the compassionate doctor before me, though beneath my relief for my son's improving health, a storm of anger brewed within me. It was clear that I was about to confront a significant ordeal. As I struggled to contain my emotions, my son's innocent remark about my stern expression snapped me back to composure. I quickly donned a smile for his sake. Mama's face is just pretending to be scary. I'm not scared, I reassured him before stepping away with a promise to return soon. Exiting the hospital, I braced myself for the impending conversation with my husband, who had bombarded me with over 100 missed calls. The moment he answered, a torrent of excuses spilled forth. It wasn't what it looked like. There's an explanation, he'd insisted, attempting to justify his actions. His misplaced priorities only fueled my frustration. Shouldn't his foremost concern be our son's well-being? There's no way a man so absorbed in such a despicable act with his own sister, neglecting our son's well-being, could ever truly care. I muttered to myself, the bitterness evident in my voice. With a husband like him, I feared for our son's future. Recognizing the bleak reality of my husband's character, I made the difficult decision to divorce him. Despite the challenges ahead, I was determined to navigate them for the sake of my son. Turning to face him, I unleashed the pent-up anger that had been simmering within me. So, while our son was suffering, you were preoccupied with that, weren't you? Indulging whenever you had a moment to spare, and with your own sister, no less. It's utterly repulsive, I spat out at him. He stood speechless, unable to offer a defense. Pressing on, I delivered my final blow. Oh, and just so you know, I've already informed your parents. I won't involve your company, for now. It would be a shame if you couldn't meet your obligations for alimony and child support. Goodbye, I concluded, severing ties with my husband with those parting words. 3 days later, my son made a full recovery, surpassing all expectations. With the discharge process complete, I returned home, embracing my beloved son's restored health. Naturally, my husband was nowhere to be found. In the aftermath of the ordeal, my husband sought me out to offer his apologies in person. Yet, as he pleaded for forgiveness, I solemnly handed him the divorce papers I had already prepared and signed. This wasn't an isolated incident, I responded, my voice devoid of warmth. I know the truth now. Your sister confessed everything. I anticipated my husband's reluctance to accept the reality of our situation, knowing that our path to divorce wouldn't be easily agreed upon. To confront him and ensure his silence, I decided to approach his sister, who was complicit in the affair. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding ceremony with your boyfriend, I began, masking my disdain with forced politeness. Thank you. I was actually thinking of crafting a clever story to share the news. Would you like to hear it? She replied, oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Are you planning to disclose everything to everyone? I interjected, my tone sharpening. I want the truth to come out. It's time people see you for who you truly are, I retorted with a smirk, relishing the power of my revelation. Please, don't do this. It would destroy my life, she pleaded, a hint of desperation in her voice. Feigning contemplation, I maintained a composed smile as I proposed, I suppose I could keep this under wraps on one condition. How about you disclose every detail of your encounters with my husband? Then perhaps I'll consider staying silent, though rest assured, your brother will still feel the sting of betrayal. What say you? Without a moment's hesitation, my sister-in-law acquiesced, her desperation palpable. Please spare him the pain. I'll tell you everything, she confessed readily. Confronting my husband with the truth left him reeling, his beloved sister's betrayal cutting him to the core. Overwhelmed, he collapsed from the shock, only to awaken and promptly sign the divorce papers, burdened by the weight of his betrayal. Taking decisive action, I enlisted the aid of a lawyer to secure divorce, custody of our son, and the appropriate financial support. Though my husband initially balked at the demands, a whispered reminder of his potential exposure prompted his compliance. With a heavy heart, he departed the lawyer's office, resigned to the consequences of his actions. Following the revelation of the affair, word somehow reached my husband's workplace, leading to a stern rebuke from his superiors. A month later, he faced the harsh consequence of dismissal, forced to seek employment at a food factory. Now, tasked with adorning cakes with strawberries to fulfill his obligations for alimony and child support, he found himself ostracized among his coworkers, his past indiscretions a constant source of discomfort, fueled by incessant rumors, particularly among younger female colleagues. As for my husband's sister, despite my discretion in withholding the truth, the details of her involvement inevitably surfaced. Her engagement swiftly crumbled under the weight of suspicion when her boyfriend, echoing my own doubts, enlisted the services of a private investigator to uncover the truth. Following the shattered engagement, she found herself facing a hefty compensation demand, forcing her to seek employment at a nightclub to make ends meet. Recently, her ex-boyfriend, perhaps feeling a pang of remorse, handed her a compromising photo of their affair with a casual, "Keep it for when you might need it." She couldn't help but marvel at his audacity as she stowed it away in her drawer, a potential leverage should her husband attempt any further indiscretions. In pursuit of a fresh start, she relocated to her parents' home, where she's rebuilding her life with their unwavering support, especially in raising her son. Despite their geographical distance, her parents eagerly offer assistance whenever needed, although she strives not to burden them excessively, reserving their help for times of genuine necessity. Since recovering from that severe fever, my son has enjoyed pristine health, almost as if the ordeal never occurred. Remarkably, he's received awards for perfect attendance 3 years running, seemingly oblivious to the absence of his biological father. Witnessing his contentment each day brings me unparalleled joy. On another note, our family has expanded with the addition of Angel, a charming white cat. Originally a frequent visitor to our yard, Angel quickly endeared himself to me. Reluctant to bid him farewell upon moving, I brought him along to my parents' home. Now, he's formed a close bond with them, becoming an integral part of our family alongside my son. As I sit on the porch, gently stroking Angel's fur, I find solace in the warmth of family and companionship. Watching my son thrive in the loving embrace of my parents, with Angel by our side, fills me with a profound sense of contentment and gratitude for the life we've built together.